Thank you everyone for coming. Thank you to our panelists for joining us. We're a little bit behind, so I'll get started right away. So we'll start with Trevor. How has AI changed the way people do their jobs and how it is used in your workplace?
All right, I'll start with some basics. So when we join meetings now, usually transcriptions turned on, and that sounds interesting enough, but what happens is it generates a series of notes and it summarizes it for everyone. So it saves a lot of time and keeps people very focused on the meetings. But that's very basic. I'm going to take it another step further. I have people on my team. So I'm senior manager of cybersecurity at Bell Canada. And we work in data centers, we manage our federal government, and we're often building tools sometimes ourselves. And sometimes we think of artificial intelligence as something that's more software based, but it can also physically manifest itself as well. So I brought a couple things here today because my team used artificial intelligence to generate it and then print it. So this here is a wire cable comb that we use in our data centers. So this was generated using AI and printed using a 3D printer. So it can physically manifest itself as well to help you. So often we think of tools inside the workplace as we've built out an agent or we have a workflow that we've built out, for instance, using things like N8N or it's baked into an operating system. So you think of Microsoft Copilot, because we use Copilot as well, right? It's good for note summarization. And also if you're trying to build out plan. So for instance, if there's a new business plan you're trying to operate from, or you're trying to consolidate data from the year before, it works very well that way. But then there's a workflow side of it. From a workflow, if you look at things like N8N, we're using that right now. So you can have data flow in, have it perform a task, and then complete. So, and what that means is it's allowing people to work in much more enriching roles. So if you lift up where people are at today, remove some of the administrative tasks. So people that want to focus more on engineering, you want to focus more on that creativity side, just in terms of development, it allows you to do that. So one perfect example of that, and then I'll hand it over because I could probably talk just an hour on this thing alone, because I do use AI probably a good hour to 2 hours a day. Not only just at work, but at school. So I'm still going to the university, and I always suggest stay with it. It's a track that keeps evolving, and you keep learning. So, but the really interesting thing that starts to happen is when you're using AI a lot, is it'll become an extension of who and what you are. Don't use it to replace something. Use it to become better at something. And what I mean is you can build out an AI to help you build out like a training program. So if you're trying to learn about something, you can have it prompt back. So understanding how to have good prompt engineering and understand good context when you're using artificial intelligence matters. And just basic things to start with, you can say, I need you to act like A. So sometimes that works really well if you're working and having a look at financial analysis. And I don't take our internal information and put it on public AI because we have internal AIs for that. So we've developed our own, we have them, and we've partnered with a lot of people to ensure that we have secure data repositories out there today. So it's just how it's changed. It's added almost, I'm going to call it a bit of a superpower. So it can make you 10% more effective, 30% more effective that day, and allow you to access skills and abilities that you should take and learn. One thing with AI, never just use it to replace, use it to learn from. And I think that's a really important part. Extend your abilities. That's what I do all the time. I ask questions, I ask new questions, and then it builds out your critical thinking abilities.
Great, thank you. We move on to Melissa.
I think I don't know what to say now. You did a great job there. Just in terms of how it's changed, in terms of the work that I do, so I work with a lot of leaders and teams and helping people navigate through essentially AI transformation. I work in generative AI, which is all the chat GPTs that are generating text, images, videos, all the things that I believe you're all on social media, a lot of you here. Yeah, so that's going to be something that's really prevalent in your industry as you kind of continue along on your path. But one of the things that I keep seeing in terms of, I mean, things are shifting quite dramatically, as everybody knows, but in how we actually come to work. And what we're actually, when we, when I sit down in a day, and if I can imagine what it was like, 5 years ago versus now, just how much I'm able to lean into technology to help with a lot of that, what I would say, low friction, the stuff that really is the kind of the everyday mundane. That stuff that doesn't always, we're caught in the bog, and then the flow of it, but it doesn't always help us to get into our kind of roles of genius. And so this is kind of creating space. AI is creating space for us to be able to kind of reimagine what what we're doing and what our clients are doing. And so what I love about where workflows are becoming more, they're just more creative. And a lot of the time people are not even paying attention to a workflow. So if you think about your own work and how you're coming up with things and you start to track each of those steps, when you see things that are repetitive, that's the good question of saying, well, where can AI help me? And so that's something that I see changing a lot in the workspace as well. And of course, just in terms of how we show up and using just that like critical judgment and critical thinking, it's really pushing us a lot on that side, because we can't just show up and just not have any discernment around this. So it's really changing the way we think in general. And what I am really excited about is creativity. That's part of my background. And when I think about creativity, I feel like it's been stifled for a long time. And so what AI is actually enabling is an opportunity to imagine anything that's possible in terms of the work that you're doing. And so an example that I put to the test, and it doesn't use N8N, but it uses a different piece of technology. I was like, I wonder if we've got YouTube videos, and how do we take transcripts, transcribe them, then put them into a blog, upload them to the website, then repurpose it, create a LinkedIn ad, and then repurpose again, send it as an email saying there's a new blog. That whole process in itself used to take us probably about 7.5 hours from the beginning to the end. I said, I wonder if it's possible to reimagine this process and get AI to help with some of those parts. Now, always human in the loop, but it was completely possible. It only takes us 45 minutes. And that's not me just saying AI go off. That's me being able to make sure that I navigate, I really help orientate AI to help me with it. So you can only imagine our work world is changing and how we work and how we do what we're trying to achieve, but it's also creating that space for thinking, which is really exciting.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Hi, everyone. So I work here at the Mount. I am the director of teaching and learning. So I work on the faculty side with your professors as they're thinking about their courses. So my response to this would be similar to my peers on the panel, but with that focus on being here in the classroom. Which I think many of you probably know what has changed in school, coming from various contexts to here. But definitely, in terms of big change for within the university, the big changes on the assessment side, I would say, more than anything else. So faculty need to think through how they assess differently. Some folks are choosing to focus on assessment practices that are more oral based, so trying to determine when it's okay to include and use generative AI to support our thinking, to support our development, but when we need to assess an individual person's skill and knowledge with and without those tools. So we've been exploring different ways of assessing and at different stages. So you'll see different types of assessments in your classes perhaps now, or different requirements. So most faculty now will include a generative AI statement on their course outline, or even maybe provide generative AI support or feedback on an individual assignment. I'm sure you've all experienced the sometimes very big array of faculty perspectives on generative AI. You might be told in one class, no AI is very bad, you should never use it, and you're going to get in trouble if you use it in this class. But then you might go to your next class and they'll say, let's use AI is awesome. So there is a very wide range of perspectives to navigate. And in terms of a big change, I think this change is kind of sometimes I think creating a bit of factions on campus that hopefully over time, I think things are going to smooth out. But right now, I think we're still in a very reactive mode here at the university. Um, Similarly, questions around academic integrity, uh, who who is responsible for um, the production of an original idea. It's still a student and the faculty member, they're responsible for the work that they produce. And if they're using AI, they're also responsible for those outputs. So there is kind of a bigger conversation going on around what constitutes academic misconduct, what constitutes plagiarism, is the use of generative AI acceptable as long as it's properly attributed. Um, Again, the other things that folks are talking about do happen in the university. So, we're seeing faculty members engaging with generative AI to help them become better teachers, whether it's to help with things like rubric design or get feedback on an assignment and how that assignment's been created. Um, or to maybe improve their slide decks. That kind of work is happening as well, but there are lots of questions around how we can best use these tools to support our learning without that replacement, without that I'm going to use a generative AI to make it look like I understand something that I don't. So I think in our space, we are seeing people use it more and more, in the same way that in industry, folks are making sure that their data is protected. We're encouraging folks to keep data protected at the university as well. So Microsoft Copilot is the AI that we have in the institution that we can use if we're signed into Microsoft Copilot. That helps keep the data that we have a bit safer because it stays within our cloud. So I'll stop there, but basically, again, I think in the academic space, maybe things are sometimes moving a bit more slowly, but we're going in the same direction as what's happening in the larger industry.
Great. Thank you, Emily. And then we'll move on to Tony online. I don't think.
Okay, I was muted. I was muted. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay. Okay. This is an exciting time for you kids, you students at school with AI. I wish I was coming out of school at this time. I mean, there's lots of different AI. I run a global software company. We make software to make smart buildings and smart hospital infrastructure and manufacturing. And we use a lot of AI. Every person, I would say, in our firm uses AI for different things. And I'll focus my conversation today mostly on generative AI because there's lots of different things that you can do with it. But the fundamental thing is that it makes us more efficient. It makes us efficient. We have knowledge at our fingertips, acts as assistants for us. We have built in our organization our own eMagic, that's my company's name, GPT, where we've trained it on things like proposals that we've given out in the past. So if we get a new request for proposal, we can run that through these systems. It will tell us questions that we've already answered. It will give us a form of a proposal that someone looks over and develops to give to a potential client. People being onboarded in our organization can use this eMagic GPT to understand, code of conducts and various policies for a company, including building our software. All our software engineers use things like Claude from Anthropic to write code. Of course, looking over that code after it's given to them by the generative AI. We use it for configuring our software for our clients, and it's generally made our people more efficient. I say everyone uses it now, but the interesting thing that perhaps we'll get a chance to talk about a bit later during this conversation is everything is moving so quickly that where you think AI is today, in 2 weeks, it's completely different. So you've got to jump in now, and then you can move with it as it moves at the pace that it's going. And I'll stop for now till we get to additional conversations.
Thank you, Tony. So for our next question, we'll start with Melissa. What is the most misunderstood thing about AI?
That it's intelligent. It's based on patterns. And so a lot of people are like, oh my goodness, I've tried this and I don't understand any of it, but it's magical. And I also often say, I don't really trust magic. So it's not intelligent. It's based on patterns. It predicts. And that's why it seems so convincing sometimes when we use something like ChatGPT, because it answers us so quickly back. And wow, we wouldn't have said it even in that way. So I think when you start to understand that element, it starts to change and you start to kind of really see, okay, if it's based on patterns, then how really can I get it to work even better? So that's the first thing. I think the other thing is just there's a misconception around, again, it's so compelling because oftentimes it's very confident, but it's got us to a point where people really outsource or they really trust it implicitly. And so that's a bit of a misconception or a bit of a miss because, again, there's so much in the AI models that where they can hallucinate, where they make up things. And so that's a misconception that it knows everything, that you ask it a question and it's absolutely a perfect answer. We've seen lots of large companies using AI and bringing back citations that don't even actually link to the reporting. There's so many instances right across the board. We are in the messy phase. And so those are just the two elements that I would say are just those misconceptions.
Great, thank you. Maybe we'll jump back to Tony online there.
Yeah, I agree with Melissa. It's AI is mostly correct, but it isn't. People think it's mostly correct, but it isn't. And it comes across as being very confident, but it needs to be looked over. Every time you get an answer from it, you need to fact check it. As Melissa said, it's not, it doesn't really think. It's just pattern matching, it's automating language processing. So people need to understand that. In addition, it has biases, a lot of biases based on the training data that is used to train it and the humans that are involved in training it. So you may think it's neutral, but it isn't. It's basically a product of the biases of the people that have been involved in training it. Thank you.
Awesome, thank you. Emily, what do you think?
Sure. Well, I was going to speak to some similar things. So instead, I think how I'll answer this question is I'm just going to turn it around a little bit to reflect some of the things I hear, especially students saying and thinking about themselves. So often students think, I'm not as smart as AI, so AI should do this assignment, or I should consult AI at every stage of this process because it knows more than me, it's smarter than me, it's better than me. And I hope what you're hearing from the panelists is that that idea of the human in the loop, the creative part comes from working with the AI, but you retain control, and your creativity and your engagement with the tool is what makes the tool rich, and also your critical analysis, your ability to detect when sometimes it is going down the wrong path because you took the time to click on that link to that citation and see that, oh, it didn't go where I thought it went, is really, really important. So when you're imagining AI in the future, you're very much a part of that future as well. I really don't see AI as replacing us, replacing our creativity. And I think that when we take the assumption that because AI produces such perfect looking writing and thinking that it's smarter or better than we are, I think that's a real limitation. And if we can instead really focus on our own agency, our own knowledge and skill, and then see how AI can supplement, support, and be our partner in our work, I think you'll feel better about yourselves. You'll feel more confident in the work that you're doing. And ultimately, I think you'll be a better AI user.
Great, thank you.
I'm going to expand upon that a little bit. It is a misconception it's going to replace your job. That won't happen. I can tell you why. It's expanding your job role. This is exactly what it's doing. So I have people that work, person in the middle, making decisions, brand new skill sets that are needed on the teams currently today. So I work in cybersecurity, but the other thing that we do a lot of is a lot of development work. With that development work, what I found AI has been able to do is speed up the process. We can get more done. Now, do you want to be just solely a software developer? Well, I would look at more like an engineering role. What's your end state that you're looking for? Understand how you want to build out your skill set to get there. So understanding the process flow is really important. Understand the engineering context that's in there when you're asking a question is really important. It's building out more opportunities for different organizations. So if I look at my organization that I work for, we stood up a number of data centers in British Columbia this year that are artificial intelligence data centers. We launched the largest AI in Canada. It's a sovereign AI, so there's new business opportunities there. So don't look at it as a limitation when it comes to jobs. Just try to understand where you want to be in the market. And I think that's a really important part. So that misconception, it's going to take my job. No. Look at the skills that you need today and also in the future and build out what you need. And there's a lot of options. There's so many options, it's almost hard to sit down and think about because you can look at it as a data scientist. You could be a DBA on the team, so database administrator. I think of system administrators, if I think of some software design and development, when you bring new customers on board, there's always a development phase. So you can be part of that. You might be part of the pre-sales that are out there today. So you're working on the process and the documentations and the agreements with the customers. There's so many different places I see it being used. So replacing you? Absolutely not. Making you more efficient during the day, like was mentioned a couple of times? Absolutely. So just embrace it. It's not going anywhere. So it's definitely the best thing to do. Thank you.
I have something to add to that.
Yeah, for sure.
Because it really depends on what industry you're in.
Yeah.
Because we do know that the job markets are evolving. So if you're a translator, chances are, and you want to go into translation, you probably won't have a job. If you're in a call center, you probably won't have a job. So there is the things that we see in the outside world and what's in through media. I absolutely agree with you in certain types of environments. But there is a reimagining of how work's getting done now. And so there is certain jobs that are now they're no longer necessary potentially for human. But that doesn't mean to say there's a cap, because there's a whole bunch of different things that are coming down the pipeline which could really benefit, and we don't even know what those roles might be. So in your roles, just in terms of as students, and again, I bring that word creativity up, that is something where we don't need all the data scientists in one room necessarily. We need people that can think, and we need people that can imagine. And that's just as valuable, especially if you can work alongside AI. That's a really valuable set of skill sets, especially in any type of multidimensional environment. So I just thought I'd add that.
Yeah,
Not
no,
to say that there's no
No,
jobs
no.
going, but some jobs are,
No.
unfortunately.
they're transforming. That's
Yes,
what's happening.
yep.
So that transformation is what's happening out there today. So wherever you're at, so say you're in a contact center currently today, and you're worried about that, and you're going, answering calls. Will system do it in the future? Yes. Somebody need to train it? Absolutely. Is there a person that's probably going to be in the middle, double checking the data going through? Yep. They're going to be system administrators managing the systems in the back end. Yep. Probably you're going to need. So you just have to understand where all the other functions are at. So functionally, the jobs are moving. So it's just transforming with that. So make sure you have the right skill sets. And you'd be surprised the value that you build with the abilities that you have that you can take forward and use with supporting AI.
Great, thank you. For this next question, we'll start with Tony. So can you share an example of how AI has made a positive difference in your business?
Sure, I'm going to make this short. We touched on it a lot already. I think the speed of finishing tasks all across the board is a positive one. We can deliver systems a lot faster than we used to. We can create projects faster than we used to, create software faster than we used to, deliver proposals, deliver documents, do tasks faster. I think also we new personnel coming into our organization learn things faster because they have access to expertise that we capture from other people who have been here for a long time and know to do things well. So people get up to speed very, very quickly. And then a third that is more related to our customers, because our software is dealing with collecting data from systems, like say a building, a smart building. You'll collect data from an HVAC system, lighting system, fire security, and all these systems. And they will bring this data into our platform, display the data, and continuously analyze that data. When you're looking at things like preventative maintenance and so on, if there's an issue with the building, then the users of our software, with all the data that we have, can ask our version of generative AI, which is called the TwinWorks Copilot, for help as to, when was this equipment last repaired, or when it was last serviced. How should I change a filter? Give me the standard operating procedures for something. So all of these things are now readily available to the to users. So it's collapsing the time at which people are be able to do things, and giving people access to more expertise. And that has been a very positive thing for us and our customers.
Great, thank you. We'll move on to Emily.
So I think that there's still things that are emerging in this space, but I'm most excited about the positive differences I'm seeing in the space of learning and accessibility. So we're still learning, I think, how best to train AI tools to better support learning. But already, we've talked briefly about language a few minutes ago. Already, there are so many more rich options for engaging in translation, as well as for looking at things through what we would call, in the sort of teaching and learning, the universal design for learning approach. So being able to produce things in different formats simultaneously. So if you want to learn and you're studying for a test, but you got to run on the bus, it's easier to sort of take that same piece of knowledge and you can listen to it as an audio file. You can engage with it in different modes. If you want to see a summary of it, you can see summaries for different purposes much more quickly. So I think that, to me, the idea of being able to turn something into a podcast or to get feedback on your assignment, even when your professor's not available, is really pretty awesome and incredible. I think those are really positive changes that give you some sense of agency and empowerment in being able to choose what you learn. If you want to learn something that isn't covered in a particular class, you have more avenues for exploring, I think, because of AI. Yeah, that's what I'll say. And
Great.
at the university, we have about 25% of our students are formally registered with accessibility services and are receiving accommodations. But I know for many students, if they've never been formally diagnosed with having a specific disability, or they've been diagnosed in a place other than Canada, you might not have access to some of those supports. And I think AI is potentially a real leveler of the playing field to really give folks more opportunities to learn and engage in ways that are supportive.
Great, thank you, Emily. We'll move on to Trevor.
Heard it mentioned speed to market. That's been huge for us. Also modernizing systems. So we have a number of legacy systems that are intact today. So changing those out would normally require a lot of effort, and that effort's been reduced significantly. So the project planning, the implementation, code that needs to be written. Now, the caution with the code, just so it's not hallucinating, ensure that you're double checking it. So it's good to have those skills to understand that. Python's a very good language to have for there. Those are the types of things that I notice are making the largest differences. It's speed and time. So everything that you can think of today is reduced. And you can also increase the quality of the information that you're delivering as well, as long as your context and your engineering is good when you're asking questions. So those are the main things that I see. Now, why is that important? It can reduce your cost structure. So organizations, as they move through time, are normally attempting to improve their cost structure, and whatever that happens to look like. So, and as you do that, you can basically have a better ROI, and it can impact your shareholders quite significantly. So if you look at those things, that's where I see the impact. That's where I see those differences happening.
Great, thank you. Okay, Melissa.
I would say similar, just in terms of time savings. I mean, I can't imagine how it would take me months to do some innovation and ideation to bring a product into the market, and now it can take just weeks. So there's a significant difference in terms of how we start to test ideas. And that this will go, in the work that you're doing as well. How do you put it out there, test it quickly? I always say fail fast, fail often. That's a good book to read, everyone. And so this allows us to really kind of move forward. But also, one area that I didn't expect to be so good was deep research. And I used to use a lot of, and still do for specific projects, but to be able to kind of use an agent model where it goes in really, really deep. And if you've got a very clear question or prompt that you're asking, say ChatGPT or a model, the information that you can get back in a very short period of time is unbelievable. And you can get it to look for patterns. You can be very specific. And so for me to collate that, a few years ago, I'd be sitting there. It would be weeks. I'd be, I'd have agencies work with it. But it's so nice that we've got the ability to be able to, when we need that knowledge and that deep knowledge, we've got it right there and then. So those are probably the two ways that I see a positive, and also the fact that it's really helping everybody, like you said about just inclusivity. It meets you where you're at. Like, I love the fact that I can do a simulation conversation on, like, just using voice. It's never been more human to be able to have that conversation. So it's really positive from just coming from a clunky tech point to, oh, now we can actually go back and forth. We can ebb and flow. It feels a little bit more natural, which there's pros and then there's probably some cons to that too, but it's just nice because you can get out of your head in a way that feels natural.
Great, thank you. So for this one, we'll start with Emily. So what skills should students focus on to be prepared after graduation as AI becomes more common in the workplace?
So I think that some of the skills I think have already been addressed by the panelists and sort of throughout the conversation, but definitely I still see a very important role for students to learn and be able to engage in research with AI. I think that it won't be you doing it without AI, but being able to fact check, being able to use your own critical judgment and discernment, particularly when it comes to complex and thorny areas where you're like, is this a hallucination? Is this quite right? Or is this the best way of asking? So, I think other folks have been talking about prompting as well. I think we're going to need to continue to learn what AI can do and can't do. Again, this has been discussed, and that involves our critical thinking skills, our research skills, and our communication skills. So maybe not writing the way that we imagine, composing long essays on our own with no support. But if we don't ask the right question, we're not going to get the right response. So I think a lot of those basic skills are still going to be important. They're just going to be used differently and hopefully even more impactfully.
Great, thank you. We move on to Trevor.
I'm going to ask a question out to the floor here. I think this will be a little bit interesting. And I didn't catch your name. Hey, Trevor. What's your greatest interest when you leave, when you enter the workplace? Or do you have a position you have right now?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Excellent. So you're getting a lot of experience right now, and everyone in the room is, right, even being here today. So think about those experiences that you have and think about how you can move them into an AI. So they all have to be trained. They all have to be supported. So when I think about when you're finished, or when you take a break, I guess, and you're out in the workplace, you're coming in with a set of skills. And what I guess the point I want to get to here is everything you've learned up to this point is something you can train a model in. So don't forget about that. Like, that information is very valuable. So if you have really good customer experience skill sets, doesn't matter what it is. I get prompted every so often right now that people are asking me to train biology models because I've done some biology work in the background. So when I think about customer experience and I think about that customer interaction, you're building those skill sets up. So there's model opportunities there. And I think you said you've created a model yourself, right? Oh, Perfect. So everyone here has the capability to create that or something like that. And it creates a lot of value and a lot of interest. So anyone with a laptop, literally a tablet, you don't need a lot of compute power. So if you took a smaller model from Meta like Llama and you have documents that you've been storing, even your school documents that you could have it do a data dip, bring that information up, and then have it available, whatever it happens to be. So everything you're creating today is valuable. So when I think about when you leave university and you leave school and you're out there, you've built up work experience, you built up school experiences, all those things can be trained in a model. So know how to interface with it, know how to share that information. And I think that's really important because we do that through stories today. And I think about how a lot of people are trained at work. Often somebody new would come in, they'd sit down with a person for a week or two. Think about if you're able to share that with an AI. So that particular information, I bet you if I tapped everyone on the shoulder here, you have some work experiences and some cool experiences that you can build that into the model. So understand how to interface with them and understand how to build them out. I've been having a lot of fun with them personally, but it's that information, that knowledge and that you've created is unique to you. So I would say build up the skill set so you can train. And that in itself will allow you to draw that information later, almost like a bank, and also share it as well.
Great, thank you. Tony, what do you think?
Yeah, I'll touch on a few things. Some of them have already been mentioned, but I would say that because of where we are, and I said before, this field is moving so fast. Um, I mean, a year ago, we just started thinking about things like agents and so on, and now they're being deployed. So I would say from someone going out, the first thing to try to, especially if you're the total novice, the first thing to try to focus on is knowing how to prompt. Like try different ways of asking a similar question to get information that you want. Try giving it long details, see what it comes back with, short questions, see what it comes back with. Just learn how to ask AI to get to what you want, to get the answers that you want. Secondly, think of it as we are progressing from dealing it as a chatbot where you're prompting it to it automating tasks for you. So build knowledge and skills in that direction where you're able to use it to automate things, to do things for you, like answer emails, e-banking, all these types of things you can have AI, you can train AI to do. But think in that direction because once we get past a lot of this prompting and research and so on, we're going to be using these AIs to do things for us. It'll work with us as an assistant, a support for us, and execute various tasks for it. A couple of other things I want to mention is that be because of the way things are moving so fast and time is being compressed, be more ambitious in terms of what you expect of AI, or being more ambitious in terms of what you expect of yourselves and what you can deliver. Because, based on where AI is today and what you think AI can do, you say that I can only do this. But if you expand that to more, by the time you need it and you learn those skills, you'll be able to deliver a lot more. A skill that is outside of AI that I want to mention is where AI will never be able to take over at this stage of the game anyway, is one of people skills, because things like relationship building and so on, you build those skills, AI can't take that away from you. So if you're technical or whatever job that you're doing and you perfect that, AI will not be able to take that for you. And just one last comment, and this is something that I learned personally a long time ago. People go to AI and say, tell me, do this for me, okay? Like, let's say you want to write an email. I would suggest rather than just simply asking it to write an email for you, the best thing to do is for you to draft a version of that email and have the AI look at it. Because when AI does things even today, and it's getting better, it sounds like AI. But if you want to have something sound like you've got to draft it yourself in the way you write or the way you present yourself, and have AI help you to improve it.
Great, thank you, Tony. And Melissa?
Yeah, I think I agree with everything that's been said. Obviously, upskilling is a really important piece, and but I also understand the dichotomy of you're in an environment that you've got different voices and you're at a very different pace. And so some of this information that, again, we're in the industry, we're using it every day. We're really ambitious. Doesn't always match the environment where, again, you're still trying to learn your craft and your skill sets and your critical thinking. And so a big piece that often people don't think of is emotional intelligence. We have to remember what it is to be human. We can get caught up in, and it's very important that we see AI as an opportunity to assist us in the work that we're doing. How can we be curious and say, okay, I'm going to, again, how can I make that part just a little bit more effective or efficient for me? All those times that you lean into that curiosity, that's going to help you, especially when you get out and you get to the workforce, because you can start to really show people how you can start to reimagine, but also more importantly, when we're kind of really dipping into our emotional intelligence, we feel grounded as we go through this experience. Because a lot of things that are happening right now is the external world is very noisy. So our heads are noisy because a lot of us can consume so much from the outer world. And I do think that that can be something that's a risk. If you let too much of that come in, and again, you don't find that groundedness in, okay, this is my lane, this is what I'm trying to achieve, this is how I'm going to try to help somebody, in a potential new job opportunity ahead. I've tried different AI opportunities. This is what's worked for me. Keep being curious, like I mentioned. Then we can just get caught up in the whole element of just this huge, gigantic, like I call it a flipping of a pancake. That's what we're going through. It hasn't landed on the other side, unfortunately, yet. But we're all feeling something, and it's completely normal. And by being able to be open and having dialogue in classrooms and being like, geez, this is how I'm feeling today, this is going to keep you in check as you move through this next phase. But definitely 100%, we all have to upskill, but we also have to be human.
Great. Thank you, Melissa. Go ahead.
I had one more thing that I want to add. We're talking about the speed that this is happening as well. And we mark this as a skill or ability, resilience with change. I think that's something important we need to recognize here, talking about all these changes that are happening. Sometimes it's a little scary because things are moving so quickly. I literally I get up an hour every single morning plus just to try to understand all the changes that have happened in the market. And it's moving quick. There used to be a psychology behind you make a change, then you wait. It's changed between 4 months, 6 months, 10 months, depending on where you're at. But it's changing daily. So taking that step back and thinking to just that human side of you, ground yourself, that's an important skill and ability you need to have because it's going to keep moving very quickly. And I think about the people that I work with that are very successful. It's that adaptability, that ability to not necessarily resist a change, but understand how you fit within that change itself. So when you leave here, just think of all the skills and abilities you've learned. You've definitely, you're moving class to class. Some are going to be finance, some are going to be business courses of other sorts. And as you move through that, you're going through a lot of change right now, semester by semester. So hold on to that, embrace it. I think that's a very important ability to have when you leave here today because it'll make you very successful.
Can I add one little tiny thing? You've got an advantage over a lot of people because actually, as we get older, we get a little bit more rigid. and we've come up in our craft where we've been very skillful, knowledgeable. We've built on that knowledge base, but it sometimes limits our thinking. And so right now you've got the potential opportunity to go, don't know where this is going, don't know how it's all going to fit, know what I really want to do. So there's an opportunity to not be afraid by that, but actually lean in and be excited by that. And every single person is in the same position, same boat. We're all in this together. Like it's not, just you versus us versus, no, everybody's in it. Nobody knows. And we all just have to do the best we can do just to show up and do whatever we're going to do well.
Great, thank you. So we are cutting it close for time. So I will ask you one last quick question and then we'll do some questions from the students. So we'll start with Trevor. If you could give one piece of advice for engaging with AI wisely, what would it be?
Personally, and this sort of fits into how we operate at work, think about the information that you're sharing. What you're feeding into the artificial intelligence itself, if it's banking information or wherever it happens to be, consider if that information, and we see this all the time, and I do work in cybersecurity, so this is going to be a little bit biased. If that information got lost, does it matter? So if you're going to use it wisely, just think about what data you're inputting. So it may not be good to put your banking records in there, your social security number, things like that, unless you're working in an air-gapped environment. So think about that just a little bit before you enter it. And I think of our internal policies that we have today, like there's no customer data that's allowed to go in any kind of public cloud. So think about your own personal data and how you're interfacing with it. So that would be my piece of wisdom with that.
Great, thank you. Melissa?
That's a great one. I will add, learn to ask better questions. Like that's my piece of wisdom. Ask better questions. Not how, how can AI help me, but like how can I use AI to help me think and decide better? Like starting to really go in the door and ask better questions so you get better information back, and also you start to, again, you're using it as that thought partner. So that's what I'd leave you with. Ask better questions.
Great, thank you. Emily?
So I don't have anything super different to say, but definitely knowing your purpose, know why you're using it before you use it. Don't just use it because it's there. Try and be thoughtful about it. And don't forget about some of the pieces that got raised on the panel that may or may not be, news to you around things like bias, around things like how the tool is, like what it's built to do and what it can't do. It's really important that as we move forward with these technologies, we want to make sure that they're aligning with our values. And if they're not aligning with our values, then we need to be thinking critically about that piece too. So I know sometimes people talk about, the conditions in which some of these big models were trained, and they're they aren't kind of horrific. They are horrific. We know that these big data centers, they do hurt our environment, and we don't have good climate plans around how these things will work. But none of that should make us not use the tools, but just we do need to remember that the tools should be able to live up to our values. And I think that's possible, but it's going to also require work from us to sort of make those demands heard so that we do have the best possible tools that represent us and represent who we want to be, who we want to aspire to be.
Thank you. And lastly, Tony.
Yeah, I think that the panel already answered this. Be careful what you feed the beast. The important thing around that is not just the data that you're putting into it. It's the fact that the public AI today, OpenAI and these systems, they're being trained constantly on the data that you're giving it. So it's learning about you. So be very, very careful what you put into it. In companies like ours and most organizations, employees are forbidden for putting any kind of proprietary information into the public AI. Any trade secrets and any of these types of things, it's a huge no-no. And secondly, the last point I would say is fact check what it tells you. I know it's been said before, but it's pretty important to keep that in mind. Whatever it says to you is fact. I just double check some of the sources and so on, because it's being trained on all kinds of things that are not true in some cases. So, and it will regurgitate it.
I would love to add to that because, again, we all have been in the circumstance where we download an app, we use it, it's free, but of course it's never free because you are the product. And so There's just being able to understand, okay, how you're going to be using and which types of models, because again, when you get into paying models, you pay for security. And so a lot of people are going, yeah, I use all these models, it's free. And what I'm really concerned about is, yes, the stuff that you're sharing, but it's not only the IP of potentially stuff that's in classrooms. It could be actually your thinking. That's your thinking IP. And so that's something to protect as well. We just don't talk about it a lot.
Great, thank you. And now, if anyone has any questions, please raise your hand and we'll bring you over a microphone so our online friends can hear us too.
Yeah, so my question was about how you explained that AI would expand the jobs and it won't take over the jobs. So that's what pretty much I have created in my app, which helps the hotel industry to help with the concierge duties. But when I show it to my managers and my supervisors, some of them like that I have developed this, so they would say that, oh, you have just created it to take away our jobs, but they won't understand that it will make the operations really easier. And at the end, like the decision making is always in the hand of a human. It's not going to be on hands of AI. Like you cannot let AI decide if you want to give someone a refund based on the circumstances, but it will always be on human. So how do we like explain it to some of them outside the industry?
Uh, this was brought up. As we get older, we definitely crystallize just in terms of what we know, how we act. We get very comfortable with that information. It's what's brought us to where we're at today, and we measure that success based on that information. So depending on who you're working with, I would show where they're at in the value chain. They might not see it. I think they might feel threatened, and that can happen very frequently because all they're seeing is maybe some of what they do currently today being replaced by that application, whatever it is. I would try to understand as much as possible to try to understand where they fit within that new environment. And that change management activity itself is really important. You'll have those early adopters that are there. So they're kind of easy to bring along. But what you're going to have to do is create some context to where they fit. So if your manager's sitting there going, well, hold on a sec, I do that work today. Well, what about the skills and abilities? Like you had mentioned, like a person's going to have to do that job to do the approval, but maybe the AI up front looks en masse at the data and makes that initial decision and then they approve it. Talk about where that skill fits in there. Maybe there's some additional training that has to happen with the model itself. So you could talk to them about that. Say, hey, we need to try in the model more. You know, I really respect your information and knowledge. It's like, would you be able to help me with this? So show the other places that they fit as well. I think that's really important. And the AI is not going to be perfect. So again, that person in the middle, that oversight needs to happen. And depending on the position they're in, like there's a lot of work to be done there. And you could look at it another way too. Like, does this person manage like one hotel today, many? Because it could become a one-to-one to one-to-many management because they're able to take on more. So there's possibility for promotions there. There's a lot of other opportunities that I see when I think about something like that.
Yeah, could I just I completely agree, and I just want to comment. AI, you'll automate and you'll get a lot of mundane things it's going to be able to do, but it does things so fast and it produces so much more work for people who have to oversee what it does or to follow up on the things that it's doing. That at this stage, I'm personally a believer that AI is creating more jobs for people than you're losing when you automate, because it's working so fast and producing so much more that other people have to do. Things change in terms of the skill sets needed and what you have to do with what AI is producing, but there'll be a requirement for a lot more of that as we use more AI.
I'd like to add one more thing just with regards to, again, this is a fear-based mentality, and it's naturally designed in all of us to make sure that we survive. And so bringing up that conversation, it might just be it's hitting a fixed mindset. It's hitting a place that doesn't feel comfortable. I think with a lot of the AI conversations, it's like, well, how do you take a step back? How do you meet them where that person's at? So how can you potentially show a little tiny snippet, or being able to open the door, or look what I did this, this time. Again, this is about people choosing when the time is right for them to see it. And so because you're so enthusiastic, I say don't lose that. But there's going to be a lot of people that sometimes just can't get there. So it's like, well, how do we just kind of give them little pieces so that they don't feel the threat? A lot of times people can't even articulate what they're feeling. And so again, don't be discouraged by the fact that you're putting something out there, which is amazing, but it's an opportunity. This is a mirror. It's okay, they're actually shutting down because their survival instincts are kicking in and they're not ready to open that door. But that doesn't mean to say if you keep on giving little things, they might just open that door and just be curious. And that will be a beautiful thing that you can give them.
I had something to add. How early in the process were they engaged when you're first building it, or did you bring it to them after the fact and say, have this really neat application built here, it's using AI, there's some automations running in the background? Because if you engage somebody early in the process and make them part of it, I find that's a heavy engagement point. So I know there's certain people that I know when I'm working with them, if I bring them in early, I get their thoughts and concepts and ideas built in to whatever software we're building or whatever the deliverables are. I find that really changes the mindset. So I'm not sure where they're at in the process, if it was something you created and then brought in, and it might have overwhelmed them. So if you go early on the process, and one way to even fix that perception is I would almost take it right back to, don't rebuild it, but what I was going to suggest is take it right back to when you first formulated the idea and step them through it and ask them if they have any additional suggestions to add in, because that can also engage people too. As long as they're part of it, I think that's a big part of how people respond. Yeah.
I can add. They give some of the feedbacks, and then, like, jokingly, they say that it might take away our job. But I said, like, decision making would always be in your hand. Yeah. You want those jobs. Maybe the agents would, but you won't as a manager.
Yeah.
I might just say one more thing, which is that I would challenge you students to try and have these hard conversations with your faculty members as well. They often are very much stuck in a fixed mindset. They've learned how to build their expertise in a world without AI, and they might not be ready in their classes and their assignments to go all the way with AI to be letting you use it for everything. But if you can have open and frank conversations, just like you would with your employer, I really do feel like we will work together to sort of understand and change these things in both the academic space and in the workspace.
I just have a question for Emily. I think something that students are struggling with AI right now is where like so many, like I'm close to graduating. I'm in my third year and I work closely with my mom's business where she is in the tourism and hospitality industry, which is similar to the business industry. And she's able to use it all the time. And then I feel like as a student, I almost get like cut off at the legs when I'm trying to use AI because we're not allowed or we're going to get in trouble, or everywhere I look, there's like a AI declaration statement or like a, you know what I mean? Like it's a fear. So I feel like I can't utilize it. So I'm just wondering if you can share some of the ways in which it's going to change going forward and how we will be able to utilize it. Because I know you said that you're working on it.
Yes, and change in the academy is very slow. So it's unsurprising that our colleagues here from industry are talking about moving much more quickly than what we see happening on campus. But yes, so these are conversations that happen that are slow. We have to respect everyone's academic freedom, and you know policies around things like academic integrity have to grow and change to adapt to generative AI. And we are having conversations as an institution about this topic. I don't think that you're going to see in your fall courses massive changes from what you're seeing in your winter courses, but we also are hearing from various stakeholders from the government, from business, from industry, from our co-op. If you folks go out on a co-op placement and you're being asked to use AI, and your co-op managers bringing back to us like, hey, my student was afraid to use AI. I don't know why. All of those things help with culture change and culture shifting. So I want to give you a really concrete answer that, it's coming really soon, but there is a culture shift happening here. And I think what we're going to see first is a bit more experimentation. And what I've been really working on myself is really trying to make AI use more transparent, because I think that sometimes we shut down the conversation so quickly, no AI is bad, that there isn't room for real conversation. And so some of the work that I do is around asking faculty about what their concerns are and trying to sort of find a balance or find a midway point. Say, okay, well, if we can't use AI for this task, could we use it for this task? Or could we use it at this stage of the process? And I know things like, AI statements or AI process. Like I gave a workshop yesterday where we were talking about audit trails of AI. So how we document what we use AI for. That must for students feel very burdensome at times. Like, oh my gosh, I have to add all this extra stuff. But being aware of that thinking, being aware of that engagement, I think does align with some of the things the rest of the panelists have been talking about in terms of engaging with the tools critically. And when AI isn't used critically, when students and faculty engage in that kind of copy paste sort of mindset where you're taking something, you're copying it, you're not really reading or engaging with what the AI says, and then putting that into your output, that's where things kind of get dangerous and messy. Yes. So I'll leave it there.
If I can just add a comment, I'm an engineer, and I would say that it's definitely going to be incorporated. It's just a matter of when. And I know you were asking at this specific school, but generally, it's definitely going to be part of what you're going to be using. I've been around so long that when I started at school, we couldn't use calculators in exams. So I've seen that happen. So the same thing is happening with AI right now. So be assured, you're going to be able to use it, if not you shortly, but other people pretty soon.
I have a quick suggestion as well for a lot of this, which is, and I wish, my hope, my biggest hope is that every single person has opportunity to be trained with AI efficiently and effectively and responsibly. Because once that's set, you don't have all these issues where they're not using it well. I think that's something that if that gets built into the model, we're going to start to see acceleration, and we're going to start to be not kind of dialed in on things that maybe are holding us back sometimes. So if it's something that, again, I know you've got probably a heavy course load, but anything that you can do to educate yourself around how to use AI and how to use it well is going to already kind of you'll be off on the runway. But I know you can't use it for, like, I'm respectful of the types of work that you can use it on.
Oh, I have one thing I can add. Sorry, I think I'm going to drive us over a couple extra minutes. I find it's very effective for just finding sources. So you don't have to use it, for instance, to write something. Think of if you're going to a library and you're going to pick out a number of books, you know the topic you're looking for. You can ask it, prompt it, put the right context in, and get some really high quality resources to come back. Read them, pull out the information you need, so you can still, I assume this is not breaching policy here at the university, but use it as a library. So don't take the content it's writing, look at the resources that it's pulling from. I think that's really important. And I use it that way myself, because sometimes those resources aren't that great. Sometimes they're wonderful. I never would have even thought to look there. And then you just pick up the book, read through it, and you have your content.
I'm going to come to you now as faculty, Emily.
Are we in trouble?
No, nobody's in trouble. I think it's interesting because I think this would be actually a good panel to put on for faculty, as well, just to kind of myth bust some things along that way. I think part of the issue, and I'm going to speak from my own experience, I can't speak for other faculty in my department or outside of my department, is the way that students try to use ChatGPT is they don't check, they don't fact check, and then it comes in with sources that are inaccurate. I teach some AI stuff at the higher level of accounting outside of this university, the next level, if you've graduated with an accounting degree and you go on a CPA. And it's all about your prompts. If your prompts are in depth and good, you can get good results. If they're not, you're not going to get good results. And maybe some of the ways to start kind of bridging this in would maybe be helping students build actual time management tables out of ChatGPT in order to manage some of that stuff, because I think that would be a super helpful tool. Personally, myself, I allow note sheets in an exam because in reality, you have access to the internet at your fingertips. Now, utilizing ChatGPT to make those, you could certainly do that. Why not? I told students, I said, work together. 10 heads is better than one. Make one sheet, print it 10 times. You're allowed one sheet. Put on it what is going to work for you. So you can get ChatGPT to work for you to do things like that if that's something that you're allowed in your course. I just think maybe a course in how to use it responsibly and ethically would be beneficial.
Yeah, and I think some of that is coming. Again, as you know, working at the university, it takes time to have courses be approved, programs be approved, but we are seeing those elements starting to be built into some courses, and we're also seeing proposals for whole courses that have an AI focus. Now, will they be on the books for you before you graduate next year? Maybe not. But I know as we're building out new programming, as we're responsible, like we don't build our courses or our programs in a vacuum at universities. So, when we build out and update what we're doing, the government is paying attention to what our programs look like. If we are in an accredited program, the accreditors are looking at what are required in those programs, and they're going to push us too. They're going to tell us, well, we want to see this, or our students don't have this skill. These students aren't meeting us where we're at in terms of workforce, so we need more of this or that. And so those factors do influence this place, whether it feels like it or not at times. And I do see lots more change coming, particularly around the critical AI literacy, which I know the panelists have chatted about, and that's what you're talking about as well, Rhonda. So when students don't have support in using AI and they just figure it out on their own, sometimes yes, they use it quite poorly, and that's disappointing and frustrating, or they're using it to sort of do something faster instead of really think things through. But more critical AI literacy, I think, is something we're going to see baked into programming, and it will also, yes, require more faculty mindset adjustment over time. But we already have real champions here at the university too. There's not one brush to paint faculty with, just like there isn't one brush to paint students with. And I know that no one thinks that, but I'm just reminding that there is that wide variety of perspectives in a place like this.
Whether it's, we're all in that rush, whether it's through work or being a student and managing work and family life and everything that goes along with the day to day. So sometimes it becomes a vehicle that we're not utilizing correctly. And there's just so much great stuff that it can do. And I think even educating us on ways, because it's going to differ program to program, what is beneficial, right? So
This is the same issue though across the board. Like it's not a university. I mean, I'm seeing it every day in organizations, and people are like, "I have zero time. There's no way I have time to learn any of this." People are saying, "Oh, use AI. Here you go," and I think it's the adjustment is going to be being really aware, self-aware. And I always say, look, walk through your day, actually document it, and really see where your time's being spent, because a lot of the time that awareness brings a really important part up for this next phase, which is how do I create time? I can't create time, but we can look at what we're doing within our days and going, look, I'm all about you can scroll, but maybe have a time that you're just scrolling consciously. And the other time, you're going to go on YouTube and you're going to learn videos, something that you never imagined. You're not going into critical thinking, but you're going to go into something else about AI that could be interesting for your career. Those are the kind of things that we're going to have to start, all of us, even in the professional world, we have to start to balance and manage our time in a different way. I know, just something else to do, but we are going to have to be more self kind of aware in that on that front.
I have one last thing. Transparency is how I think you can get to this. Part of my grades that I have in graduate studies, I'm still in school too, is actually on the transparency. So you have to write down what you used, how you used it, what information it provided. That's actually part of the grade. So it's kind of an interesting way to tackle it. So that transparency itself, it's easy for Turnitin and other things to actually check those markers. So, but it'll make you want to share that information. And once the university has that information, you can use it in other ways too. How do you guide and craft courses? What information do students need? So it's really valuable information to really help evolve that type of program. But that's partially how I'm graded right now. It's interesting. It was the first time I've seen that. So.
All right. Unfortunately, we do need to wrap up the end here. So we want to thank our panelists very much for coming, and thank you for students attending as well. If you are in the Learning Passport program, you have 48 hours to complete your survey, and thank you.